I'm sitting here today with Dave Johnston, otherwise known as Fat Dave. I know he doesn't look like it anymore, he's more like Spelt Dave. But Dave and I have a little bit of history. We go back probably about 12 years, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, a surprisingly long time.
Surprisingly long time, yeah.
That's right.
He also provided the intro music and some of the other music that I use. He's a killer musician, awesome guitar player, awesome guy. Always good for a quick joke and intelligent conversation. So why don't we talk a little bit about your musical career a little bit and where that's led you to be, and try and fit some car stuff in there.
Well, I've been playing guitar in various rock and roll bands around the Edmonton area for about 25 years, which is a really long time when you say it out loud.
Especially when you're only 28 years old.
Yeah, exactly. I picked it up when I was 3. and yeah, kind of been moving gradually towards towards more of like a rockabilly kind of feel in the way I play, and some old cars kind of go hand in hand with that. So there was always an interest in old cars for me, but for me it came a lot later that I actually was able to get into it. And when I did get into it, Dave was right there. So kind of made fast friends and had a lot of fun pulling wrenches and inventing new cuss words.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Maybe explain how you got into old cars and how it kind of ended up happening for you.
Well, like I said, they were always interesting to me. We have a mutual friend named Johnny Phillips, and he got himself a 62 GMC pickup truck that he pulled out of a field, and it had a straight 6 in it, and he made it go. He eventually moved that truck along and got something else, but in his research of how and what to do with that truck, he came across a place called LG Customs, where another mutual friend of ours, Lee Grant, was the owner of that, and Al Sharon was working there at that time as well, and eventually got invited to hang out with the car club that Dave was a part of. So
The Clutch Poppers.
Clutch Poppers.
Yeah, we disbanded that a few years ago. A lot of us still keep in contact, like Dave and myself, Johnny, Al, but it's a little hard as you move along in life. Sometimes I've moved away. Lee moved to Victoria. I mean, things just didn't work out. But there's a bond that happened in there that's lasted and stood the test of time. And even if we don't see each other for months or even a couple of years, when we do get together, it's just like
it's like no time has passed at all.
Yeah, exactly. Which to me is what true friends is totally all about.
Yeah. I figure a guy's lucky to have a couple of those in his life. So, and I've got more than a couple. So maybe I'm a lucky guy. I'd rather be lucky than good.
Really, we gotta have some of this.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about cars. We're gonna talk about music, and we're gonna solve some of life's problems tonight.
Perfect. That's what I signed up for.
My favorite.
Yes.
So why don't we talk about some of the cars that you had over the years and how it led into you getting other cars?
All right. The first old car I got was a 65 Pontiac Laurentian. It was a 4-door, 283. Things were starting to go on it. I mean, it was an old car, right? But frustrating things. It was starting to overheat a little bit. I had a leaky radiator, and some hoses were getting kind of soft, and it was a bunch of stuff. And I really had no place to work on it at the time. And I didn't really have a place to park it over the winter either. I parked it at John's house, fully confident that it would start the following spring. But kind of towards the end of that summer, I listed it for $300 more than I paid for it, and these crazy newfies came, and there's like 5 of them, and they started it up, and I wasn't confident that it was gonna like make it across the river from where. So, but you know, they were good, and so I met at John's place where it was parked, and we've been dealing with some stuff, and we were kind of just quickly trying to make it look like less of a mess than it actually was, and then these guys show up. There's like 4 or 5 of them, I think, and they're like, "Yeah, no, my old man had one of these, and we're gonna do it." And like, it's like a 4-door car. It's like a parts car, right? Like, you're either gonna drive it until it falls apart, which won't take long, or you got a 2-door car somewhere and you're gonna use some parts, and I get that, right? And so these guys are like, "Nope, we're doing it up." I'm like, well, that's just like a nice thing people say. I don't have a sentimental attachment to this car. Like, it's fine. Nope, we're doing it up. It's gonna be
dead serious. These guys
like,
were dead serious.
They were dead serious, and I was like, okay, cool, that's great. I hope to see it rolling around one day, right? So they left. They offered me. I was asking $300 more than I paid for it, and they offered me, or they offered $300 less than I was asking. So I got every dime out of it that I put into it. And off they went, and then I split, and I called John the next day. I was like, they come back, all upset that the car broke down a block away. And he was like, nope. I was like, all right, we're good. We're shopping. So we went and found a 59 Pontiac. These are Canadian Pontiacs, right? So they're closer to Chevy cars than they are to the American Pontiacs. Which is worth noting since we're on the internet, I guess. And so we found this. Me and John found this 59 Pontiac that had a 261, which is a cool motor, and it was a little further down the highway to hell than I was really prepared for, but it was so cool. Yeah. So this was a two-door hardtop 59 Pontiac. It was silver gray, 261, but the 261 is a straight 6. It's the big 6, but it was painted like a V8. Usually those V6s are the valve covers are orange, and the valve covers were like marine blue, which is kind of weird. And but yeah, it needed a floor and a windshield and a whole lot of rust repair that I at the time was not quite ready for. Even now I would be staring pretty long and hard at that car, I think, but it was what it was. It was a very cool car. It was just a little too big for my britches at the time.
The unfortunate part about that car is that it needed quarters too, and they don't make quarters for that car. You would basically have to build all the patch panels yourself.
Well, yeah, and as soon as you're talking about like, oh, I have a rare car, I have a rare American automobile or a rare North American automobile, you're talking about a vehicle where you have to make your own patch panels. This is the secret code. It's like, oh, it's rare. Oh, good luck finding parts, right? That's what that really means. So I ended up listing it, and I ended up simultaneously finding a 52 Ford half-ton, and ended up talking my way into a straight trade, which was like a midnight trade. Like, so when he saw 59 Pontiac 2-door hardtop coming his way. He was pretty excited about it, no matter what condition it was in. We pulled that thing on a trailer to this field where this other truck was, and we dropped it and we winched the truck onto the trailer, and we did a little handshake with the guy, and then we got out of there. And everybody was very relieved for me that I was able to get out from under that car. We got it back to the shop and put a fresh carburetor on it and just started.
Really?
Yeah.
Here we go. First time ever since 1951. Hit. Hang on. Go again. Go again. Carburetor's no good. It runs! Dude, it's squirting me in the eye! It was like... Oh. Alright, let's change the carburetor. Okay. Look at that. Squirting right in the eye. I like it. Here we go, Dave. Anything that squirts you in the eye is okay with me. What do you think, Dave? What do I think? I think my truck runs. And I couldn't be happier about it.
Well, that's just delightful. So, let's check back later when we got a new carburetor on.
All right, let's do that. Okay, all right, give her a shot, see what it does. Wow.
Man, this thing runs like a top.
We did tons of work to that. We notched that frame in the back. We flipped the axle. It ended up dropping it like 11 inches in the back. It was like wild tail dragger.
It was awesome.
It was nuts. Yeah, there was some pretty cool. You gave me some pretty cool hubcaps that maybe we just threw them on for a photo or so. But I don't know. It looked really cool. It was a cool truck. I ended up getting rid of that because I kind of needed the money, and I needed a smaller project. So I was actually looking for a motorcycle at that time, and I never found a motorcycle. I think I did. I found a 54 Indian that somebody beat me to by like about an hour, and right after that I found Ford Fairlane, which is a 62, and it's in this garage right here.
Well, that Fairlane's a pretty good car. Like inline 6, it runs very well. I know you had some issues with it. You've completely rewired the car right in your own garage. Never rewired a car before. Takes it on, kills it.
Oh man, man, I can't believe that it actually, like, I've never had such a sense of accomplishment as sorting out a wiring issue like that. And I had a dead short somewhere. I did find a couple of spots where it could have been, and I got it all together. And I figure that I also had an alternator problem, where it wasn't totally dead, but it was just throwing a little less than 12 volts. Like, it was okay, but it wasn't, it just wasn't doing what I needed to do. But I did that. We did that electronic ignition.
Yeah.
That's just the stuff in the last couple of years here.
That electronic ignition, it really woke that thing up too.
Oh man, it was like a different car. Completely.
It always ran a little bit rich, and then you put that electronic ignition on, and it just cleaned it right up. Like, and I think all it was like a cheap knockoff MSD. Was the Summit box.
Yeah, it's a Summit box.
Exactly like an MXD, except it's got the Summit label on it.
Yep. Yeah, and it was totally cool. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was when I put it in. It was, I asked you about it actually, and you were like, "Yeah, try this thing out. Just follow the instructions, and it'll work." And I was like, "This doesn't make any sense. I have no idea what's happening inside this box." You take wires and you attach them to parts of your distributor that you think you should never attach wires to.
And pull some of the guts out.
And pull some guts out. And then all of a sudden your car runs like a top. And you're like, what is... I'm afraid to open that box and let all the magic smoke. A lot of traditionalists will say you got to use these antiquated parts. You got to use points and a condenser. And it's really not the case. The argument is, the classic argument is always like, what if you break down in some small town and the old mechanic shops, they're always going to have points, sitting on the shelf there. You can have an extra set of points in your glove box. To which the response is, if you're going to break down in a small town in the year 2020, no mechanic shop that you come across is going to have points on hand. They're not even actually going to know what that is. Those guys are all retired and dead now. So
I would hazard a guess that there's more shops, say within Edmonton right now, that would be able to pull an MSD box off the shelf and hand it to you than there are shops that would have points and condensers in the back.
Actually, I would hazard a guess that that's absolutely true. Yeah, wiring that car was an adventure. It took, it was like, it would take a professional 3 days to do it. It's like, oh, cool. So I'll take like 6 months. And I did take 6 months, and you know what? It was a good 6 months. I set out to accomplish it, and I felt really good about doing it. Especially once, my turn signals started working, and it was running so good. And even since doing that, I was just like, oh man, there's all these other jobs that I want to take on. And so that car probably went to the grocery store half a dozen times, like 8 blocks away, before it was completely incapable of doing so yet again, and pulled a bunch of stuff out of it. But it's always there, right? I have this car. I've had it for 10 years officially, and I don't need to impress anybody at this point. So I'm more interested in having a car that works when you start it than I am looking cool with my thumb out on the side of the highway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, whoa, that's a cool car.
Well,
cooler if it would run. I'm more interested in getting it there than I am in just rolling a bucket of bolts down the road.
I appreciate these guys that build traditional cars that are, everything's got to be built in 1949 or 52. Everything's got to be exactly the way it was.
Oh yeah, there's museum level restorations and stuff like that, and modifications too. Totally.
Absolutely. The problem with it in 2020 is that you also gain the problems that those guys had. So traditional cars create traditional problems.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. as much as I appreciate that approach, and that I feel that those guys are important for
Preserving history.
And it's important that people know that there's someone around who knows how that stuff went together in the first place, and you know, we know a few people like that. My family, they're a little less understanding when you have traditional problems on the side of the highway.
Right.
So
Right. You should just be able to get into a car, start it, put your foot on the brake, put it in gear, drive away.
ideally,
And ideally, I think that's where I'd like to be with my own stuff.
this is a
Sure,
simple
that's-
goal, but these simple goals do not always have simple processes that get you there.
Well, I think that's why the resto mod stuff is becoming so popular these days too, where guys are running the plug and play fuel injection, the power brake kits that go along with a lot of the modernizing stuff a little bit, and still retaining a little bit of the character of the car without turning it into a brand new car.
Absolutely, and I have just as much appreciation for that approach as I do for the traditional guys. I personally am not in a position to do either, and the reason for that is my budget is a little smaller. If I had the budget to just have a 60s car that you could, like a turnkey 60s car with a flashy paint job, then I would have a car like that. I would have bought it that way. But to tackle these things in a cost-effective way is sort of a challenge onto itself too. I have no intention of selling this car. I've had it for 10 years. I've had it longer than I've had all those other cars combined. And I guess never say never, right? But I've got, it's worth more than I have into it, and I like it that way. I can justify certain things, and justify certain liberties that I take in restoring it and getting it kind of up to snuff. Keeping the overall budget in mind. Now I don't have like an allowance or anything like that. I'm not hamstringed like a lot of guys like to say they are or anything like that. But I do like to think about what I'm going to get out of the car,
Right.
if I were to sell it. So I'm into this car for like between $7,500 and $8,000. And if I threw it together and made it start, which I can't do today, but if I threw it together and made it start, I would get somewhere between 12 and 20. I know that's a wide field there, but there's also a global pandemic going on. I have no idea what somebody would offer me.
Well, I have to say it was good to get together with you.
Absolutely, always a pleasure.
It's good to talk about cars, drink some beer, have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen as often as it should.
No, certainly does not. But I don't know. You still got old cars, and I still got an old car. So what's our excuse? What's a 3-hour drive between good friends?
That's right. But we're gonna drink some beer another day,
And then some.
and then some.
That's right.
And we will see you next time on Garage Build Heroes. Really remember, but
Daddy,
I'm gonna cut there.
not that kind of movie.